Hello, good morning. So I'm going to start my speech. My name is Patricia Arispe. I'm a psychology major. Okay. So a few weeks ago, I was watching TV with my mother, and we were watching like Law and Order or CSI show, and the pinnacle of the show was that there was a court hearing, and they only had one witness, and my mother was livid because she said she used to be a court reporter, which was she was one of those persons that would transcribe everything the court hearing, and she said that a good testimony or a good evidence would usually take 3 to 5 witnesses, which is precisely what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about false memory syndrome. So let me read you the actual definition. It's a condition where identities and relationships are affected by a factually incorrect memories, which is an updated definition by Lassie and Stark in 2013. So what this means is that in a court hearing or in a courtroom, there errors can occur, right? So falsely convicted prisoners, in a recent study made by Jones in 2011, it is estimated that 1% of the U.S. population prisoners were falsely convicted. That is around 20,000 people a year, which might not seem like a lot of people, but you need to remember that each person has a family, has a work, has, dreams and goals, and by one false memory, they were convicted. They were wrongly convicted. Which leads us to our next point, which is memory biased. Memory biased is, I'll give you an example. So usually when you're happy, you will recall happy memories. If you're sad, you will recall sad memories. So memory biased, it's memory based on your mood. So let's say you just went through a traumatic event, and you're being interrogated by an investigator. It will most likely, you will recall traumatic events and you will get them mixed up. The human memory is very fragile and vulnerable. So let's just keep that in mind, that a mood or a traumatic event or something that just happened can actually change your memory or change a little part that can convict and falsely convict somebody. And children are the most affected by false memory syndrome, especially when the interrogations are biased. I'll give you an example. Let's say a child went through a traumatic event, domestic violence, rape, all of that, and they're being interrogated. Let's say a child is being interrogated. And in a recent study made by Principe in 2010, children are more likely to suggest or more likely to convict an innocent person based on suggestive questions being made by the interrogator. Let's say, I'll give you an example. An interrogator asks a child, "Did Mr. X touch you there?" That's not an open-ended question. That is making a hypothesis, right? A suggestion. Oh, did somebody touch you? Or instead of just saying, were you being touched? Or, a very specific details that can really like change the memory of the child, which is not what we want. And And also, we need to keep in mind that children's memory are, you know, very vulnerable. Why? Because children are, they usually have short attention spans, or they have very big imagination. You know, if you have children, or if you have nieces and nephews, and they see somebody with very pronounced features, they will say, oh, they look like this, or they appear to be like an animal. And so when they go to traumatic events, and they are more likely to forget a face, or if they remember the face with a face of an animal, like a human face, and they relate it to an animal, and the interrogator are asking them, well, how do they look like? And they say, well, they look like a mouse. And that's not really very specific details, you know. And let's not forget that the human brain the human brain stops developing at age 25. At age 25, you stop doing, immature stuff and doing other kinds of things. That explains a lot of things, right? So you might be asking, if it is so well known that children are most likely to falsely convict somebody, what are the laws, or what are the states, or what is the court doing to prevent this? So many states have a high number of eyewitnesses or evidence, or they usually will have an expert reviewing the interrogation material to make sure, if children are the ones being interrogated, that they're doing it by the law. Of course, the system is not always good. Rules are made to be broken, a lot of things could happen. And that was based on a Baldasso and Maranja project in 2018. So we need to keep in mind that children also can plead their Miranda rights. They can plead the fifth if they're being asked questions. If they're gonna be asked questions, they can ask for a parent or their lawyer to be present in the interrogation. However, of course, if they were raised in a conservative place, or if they were raped, or if they were abused, they were molested, and it's not accepted in their family to talk about sexual stuff, of course they will hesitate to say details. And to conclude this speech, we need to remember that false memory can ruin a person's identity and integrity. Of course, if you're the one falsely convicted, like this let's just say an example. If you're the one being falsely convicted, of course it will ruin your life. But if you're the one giving the testimony and you falsely convict somebody else, it will have a traumatic effect on you and your family and that other people's family, and a lot of people will get involved in one bit of false information. Let's just keep that in mind. And with that, I end my speech. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them down below. And this is a researchable topic, so feel free to research anything that you like, or any questions. Of course, it's up to you. Bye.